accommodate. Right. I'm going to record this. Is that okay with you, Mary?
Yeah.
Great.
It's fine.
Okay. Oh, there's keep coming. Few people. Right. Anyone here who doesn't speak Korean? I can't ask you to raise your hands, but yes, I know, Herta, you are. Yosahang, you're there, okay. Yosahang, can you leave your email in the chatting box, please?
Oh, okay.
Leo, can everybody show us your face if you're attending this? And Li Wei, EU, can you also leave your email in the chatting box? And Chang Myung-ok, Yu-gun as well. Please leave your emails in the chatting box, please. Okay. Yeah. Yu-gun, which department are you from? Could you leave in the chatting, or you can just speak out? And you Pung in it as well. Can you tell us which department you're from? Or if anybody knows where they're from, you can speak it out. Speak it up for me as well. Chong-ui, where are you from as well? Can you tell us which department you're from? Okay, there's more coming in. Yeah, maybe I will give notices here again. We have quite a few Chinese students in our department and overall graduate school. So sometimes we use translator during the lectures and stuff. But this time we thought it's okay, you know, it's in English and, you know, they'll pick it up. And if there's any difficulties, some of the students here could help as well. They should be fine. Sujang, can you also let me know which department you're from? 수정 씨 수정 씨 어느 과 출신인지요? 이름이랑 과랑 이메일 알려주세요. Marie-Helene, do you speak Korean? No? I can't hear you. Oh.
Sorry, I speak a little Korean.
Do you?
Yeah, so I understand some stuff and I can say easy things, but I haven't been in Korea for 10 years now, so I love. Yeah.
Hope we can invite you, yeah, over actually. That'd be really nice. All right. I don't have information from Leo, Changmin, Kang Chunmun. Can you leave your emails? Yes, Changmin, leave your email. Let me know your email and show me your face.
So all the students are studying remotely for the moment?
Yeah, some lectures they can actually go to school. It depends on the professor, you know, if they allow students to come over to university, then they allow it. But because still we have a lot of students still in China who hasn't traveled to Korea, so we are, you know, running it in great. Ha So Meng. Okay. got you. 정의, brilliant. Thank you. Thank you, Sujong. Sujong, I thought you were Korean, but it looks like you're Chinese. Okay. Sujong, Changmin, 이상희, 하소맹, 정의, Changmin. I need. Okay, you're trying. Okay, very good. Very good writing. You wrote it. Please wait, I'm trying. Please feel free to, type in here if you need to, okay? Yes, you're from China. Nice to meet you, Sujong. Okay, show me your face. That would be great. Yu Yang Oh, have you left your email? Yes. Give me your email, please, Yu Yang Oh. And Kang Chun-moon as well. Okay, I just wanted to let students know that through this workshop, when we get the results or the your process, your presentations, the great works will be credited and exhibited either offline or digitally. We haven't chosen how we're going to present your works in the exhibition hall, but yes, so do work hard. It will be quite fun. Kang So-dong, can you also give me your email? There's quite many people than I expected, which is good. Okay, now we're 13 minutes past. Should we ask you to start now?
Yeah.
Are you ready?
We can start. Yeah.
Okay, I think we're ready.
I'll start with the presentation of the office, and then Didier will come over and start the lecture.
Okay.
Okay. So, hi everybody. My name is Marie-Helene Fabre. My Korean first name is Dongmin. So whenever.
Nice to meet you, Dongmin.
I'm very. I'm very happy to do this workshop with you, and Didier, who's coming in a few minutes, is very happy to give a lecture to present our work. So to start, I will do a short presentation of the office. So the office name is Mésarchitecture. I will write it here. And also under, so Mésarchitecture is the architectural office. And it's, if I translate in English, it means Miss Architecture, like a misadventure. So it's a game of words, and it's to give this idea that we don't do things that that go straight to the point. We often use, we do some detour, and we work on things. We try to question all the time things that seems evident, and we try to play with the norms. So that's why this name, Mésarchitecture or Mésarchitecture. Yeah. Oh, I will pass to you some reference of books on our works that we have published or that were published by some editors, especially in, I think, 15 years ago, we had a monography published by the Korean company, you know, Damdi. On the DD series, there's one of the book which is on our work. It's quite old now, so you don't have the recent work, but it's a good book to see some of the works we did 10 years ago. So the office was founded in 2002 and by Didier Faustino and Pascal Mazoyer and myself. So let me show you a picture of the team. I will share my screen. Yeah. Do you see my screen? Yeah. So here is Didier, here is Pascal, and here it's me. So it's really the core of the office. Right. And the office was founded officially because years before we already started to work together and try to do different things, but we officially started the office in 2002 because we were commissioned a project for an exhibition in Switzerland called Expo 02. And it's an exhibition, probably you've seen some of the works that different architects were commissioned to design some kind of pavilion. And our pavilion was a mobile floating pavilion. And one famous work, one famous pavilion at this exhibition was a pavilion by Diller and Scofidio, which was a pavilion with a mist all around, a mist cloud. I'll send you the references. Probably the students have seen some images of this, this pavilion. And we designed Arte Plage Mobile du Jura, which was a mobile pavilion. And I don't know if Didier will show you some pictures, but I can always send you the link on our website. Let me write the name here, and it's Expo 02 in Switzerland. And so it was in 2002. And so we started officially the office like that. And since then, there have been many type of works, from micro architecture to installations and some small buildings. We have built actually 2 buildings in Korea. Didier will show you some images, I guess. One was for a foundation, and it's located not far from the border on the east coast of Korea, not far from the border with North Korea, with the DMZ, I mean. And it's a tea pavilion. And the other building is in Anyang Park, so south of Seoul. For a biennale, I think. And there was a series of artwork commissions to different people, and we were commissioned one work, and so we built a small office building called the Misfits, sorry, I was Misfits, so Misfit Tower in Anyang Park. And also, so there's Mésarchitecture, and there's the artwork under the name of Didier Faustino. And although it's more in the field of art, and some pieces are really more like art pieces, I mean, like photographs or videos or art installations shown in galleries. The artwork and the architecture work, they of course all focus on the same interest and same quest and same intellectual mechanism. So, and today we're currently working working for an artist building his artist studio. It's in France, in the west part of France, not far from Normandy, but it's between Paris and Normandy, so between Paris and the really west part of France. We renovated existing houses that were on the site for his housing, and then we're designing his artist workshop. And if everything goes well, the building will be finished in 1 year. So we're really looking forward to it. Then we also have, we have some projects that are a bit on hold, not necessarily due to the COVID situation, but some more. And like, for example, a house in Costa Rica in South America. And we've been working a lot for a Mexican art foundation, especially on the cultural space for this foundation. And among other projects, one of the projects on hold is also a small artist residency cultural space in Japan, in the island of Ishigaki. But because of the COVID situation, the investors have postponed their investments. So we have to wait to start working on that project again. And then we have some exhibitions, and Didier is also currently teaching at the AA school in London. So yes, different things are going on. And we have projects in France, but most of our projects used to be abroad. And now we're trying to focus a little bit more on the French territory. And also we have opened an office in Portugal 2 years ago. And so we also have some architecture projects going on in Portugal, like a student's residency and some summer houses in the south of the country. So that's for the brief presentation. And now I leave it to Didier to give his and to present the work more specifically. Let me write our site address where you can have a look on different projects. And so enjoy the lecture, and I will be back in 1 hour or something like that. Thank you.
Thank you, Marie-Helene.
Hello.
Hello.
Good morning.
Hello.
Or
good afternoon and good morning. Very nice to meet you.
Enchanté. My name is Didier. I will present you a series of projects as a bit we used to work. Sorry, we used to work on our topics. As Marie-Helene introduced, we start our studio around the beginning of this new century. I study in the 90s in France. And we established our studio early 2002 around this idea after a series of projects we did just after school around this idea of the body is the central point for architecture, and all our research are always related to the notion of body, what's mean a body. So I will start actually because it's the morning. It's my first time I have a so early lecture, so I will try to, and it's my first lecture on Zoom. So let me just, Marie-Helene? Marie? Okay, I don't know how to use it, but I will start to share the screen. I'm downloading the presentation. It's a bit slow. So I will go through a series of projects, and probably after it's a format, and after I will continue with some more recent projects, some more the history of the project. Okay, so if I do that. Okay. Okay. So now from that, I can go like that. All right. So I will start with this quote coming from a movie. It's actually Fight Club, a movie from the 90s. He comes from a book. Now, sorry for the reference, but the names are not coming in my head in this early morning, but by the way, so, and the film finish with a kind of explosion of the city where activists and the main character is looking the city falling down, so the towers explode and fall down. This film was not made in the 90s. Yeah, it was made end of the 80s, and it was super interesting because for me, I start my career as an architect with this film reference about we are living in a moment of collapsing world where the things are, the paradigms are changing, the interests are changing, the care of the world is totally in another direction. Actually, my word starting was the end of the last century, and I start my practice in the new era, let's say. And I and us as a team start with this very strong consciousness about which environment can we tackle, which environment are we studying, and will inform our production, design production. I don't consider myself as an architect. I consider myself more as a kind of, let's say, designer or form thinker. And we develop all the work around this idea, not being fully architect, but being more a kind of researcher about conditions. Our interest goes from, as I say, environmental research goes from social to political conditions to produce new situation, or to touch situation and pervert, let's say, subvert the situation to generate new use or new attitudes, new situations. So coming from this quote, we designed this kind of metaphorical objects, like here, this kind of classical chair from 18th century, who became a side-up, side-down chair, who opened the discussion with more a kind of metaphorical objects to question the notion of power. Body is our interest relatively to a very simple conclusion. I mean, observation is humanity is a fragile condition. And so after this observation, we develop our project around this idea. What can we build or organize or structure or disorganize to generate something who will be more protective or something who will be more conscious or more in the consciousness about the world we live. So that's probably the first statement of the office who is experiencing fragility. Our studio is called Bureau for, the first name was Bureau for Mésarchitecture. Mésarchitecture is an unexisting term, but I find it very interesting, this connection between mis, the prefix, and architecture, who gives this kind of possibility to think about not the perfect thing, but things who can be in a way failures, and to take lessons about a failure is for us the same important than a success. The definition for me is a kind of invention, who was this unexpected and usually undesirable event, means what we expect should bring something we don't expect, something will generate interrogation and new possibilities. We consider ourselves as misfits in the system, maybe not in the society, as a team, as a studio with a kind of organized company now, but we still think our position is not really fitting with what people expect from us. And we live with that very comfortably, very focused on what we do. Fragility is a notion which is not usually very used in terms of construction, in terms of architecture. Even now we have more and more thinkers, architects thinking, or designers thinking about this notion, who will be in certain point a starting point for metaphoric or, let's say, more poetic systems. We believe that the notion of fragility is more linked to the question of the body as physical, but not only physical, let's say the physical body, the social body, and the political body. We start one of our first projects. Now I'll introduce a series of projects, a bit random, not fully one after one, let's say, with chronology, a normal chronology. Is more about scales and different things. We don't work with a specific scale or a specific, let's say, type of program. We like to jump from one scale to another one topic to another one. There is not a main line of, let's say, what we call an identity in terms of design. It's something I really don't care. I'm more focused on what are more than the answers, the question we tackle. The first one I show you is a project We designed for a competition. It was end of the 90s. It was really end of the century. It was this project competition for Roswell, you know, this small town in Texas in the United States, where supposedly in terms of, let's say, conspiracy system, some aliens arrived and American army find some new ways to dominate the world. I don't know so much about that, but you know Roswell, you know the most famous series, TV series called X-Files. And this young architect started this competition. It was Syracuse University, if I remember well, and Death for Architecture group. And they did this program competition around, can we build an hotel for aliens? We use it as a possibility to reflect about urban planning and a kind of affordable housing. And we designed a very simple system who was an opposition between private and public space, where here this small, very simple form is divided in two situations: capsules for privacy and open space for collective use and life. And we make it as elements of a system, like, let's say, puzzle system as it is designed, to generate a non-stop inside world who can be adapted to many lands, territories, to generate a kind of non-stop occupation of territory. It was kind of critical project. It's a critical project about the way we design cities and the way we organize the housing system, who is like not taking care about individual specificity. So this random non-stop city was more not a project to, let's say, win the competition, but something more to establish a discussion about what was the topic and who was actually the aliens coming from the outer space, who doesn't make sense for us at this time. But the real question, who are the aliens for American citizens? Aliens are the migrants coming from the other side of the border, and this fear of contemporary societies about the unknown coming, the foreigner. And we start to talk about that, and we make this kind of parody of architecture to talk about how architecture can be at one moment not taking care about political systems and social systems acting. And for me, at this time, the main question was immigration and how legal or illegal foreigners, borderlines, are the new instruments for politicals to occupy the thinking of population, and the fear of how politicians use this fear and the fear of others to build their career and their systems. Just after that, a few years after, we were invited to the Venice Biennale. So it was in 2001, and the invitation was the curator who makes this invitation was the Italian architect Massimiliano Fuxas, and the theme of the Biennale, the title of the Biennale was Cities More Ethic, Less Aesthetic. And I was a bit disappointed by this invitation, also because we were in one hand very young. I mean, I was like 20. I was just getting out of the school. And the previous project was a lot of people pay attention on this project, and I got this invitation for the Biennale. And the thing was, by the curators, Massimiliano Foxas and the others, people around, was this more ethics, less aesthetic, was a very hard question. So my thing was to take exactly the same topic, not trying to show my work, but to produce a real project for this exhibition. And the thing was not to produce a model, a project as a model or as drawings, but to produce the architecture. What will be the architecture, and how can I build this architecture for this Biennale? And at this time, 1 year before, was this drama in an airport in Belgium, where a kid was found dead on the airport takeoff space, and it was an African kid, and it was revealed this kid was come in Europe few months before, stuck on the wheels of an airplane, and he survived to cross the seas and to arrive to Europe to find a new place to work, to survive, leaving the poverty of these conditions to find a better world. And authorities bring him back to Africa, to his land, and the kids did it again. But this time he arrived dead in Europe. And this moment made me realize that will be the topic I want to tackle and to talk about. The previous project was already talking about this thing, about the fragility of the condition of human condition, specifically poor societies and poor countries where the people try to survive and to escape to their condition. And this kind of fight between rich and poor countries, where the rich wants to be protected about this situation. So I decided to build and to design an architecture who can, in a way, protect the fragility of this condition, of these people. And I decided to design a container, a micro architecture to protect the body. It's called Body in Transit, and that's the project we show at the Venice Biennale, was this box who contain one person who can fly safely in a plane and protected in extreme conditions. Of course, it was not, the idea was not to say we should do that, but we should think about what can we do for this situation not continue and not be the new normality of our times. Unfortunately, I will say the project was really well accepted, and a lot of discussion around. We got a lot of publication and discussion in this beginning of 21st century. But at the same time, the reality, the political situation, the socio-economic and geopolitical situation getting worse and worse. You know all about the situation in Mediterranean thing about this new world we are now, where most of the wars, the conflict generate these situations. I mean, I'm born in a century in the end of the 60s, in the beginning of the 70s, where the idea was we need to fight against dictatorship, again radical thinking. We need to live together. And in 30 years, the world comes again in an incredible, cynical situation where how can we protect our beautiful life and others die? So this project was a kind of scream of fear about what will come. History, we find part of our inspiration and topics on what was the history. In the beginning of the 20th century, it was this movement in art and architecture who was very looking about, let's say, minimum existence. How can we survive? Because the situation was also, in a way, going wrong. So I take this reference, sorry, I don't remember the name of the draftsman, but just to say the condition and the necessity of the minimum is part of, let's say, our also fundamentals, and what could be the minimum proposal about the topic and situation. Another moment, we also were looking about housing and how can we develop housing for our contemporary life, and about this kind of, let's say, world where we try to solve situation with the most common point for everybody. But at the same time, we don't think about what is the individual. So we start to think also about what could be in a way the paradigm to build more easy construction for the maximum of the people. And we go on this idea of why we don't build an architecture, or we don't design an architecture who can be industrially produced and develop. And we make this project called the 1 square meter house, who is a house for one person, a dwelling space for an individual who can go everywhere and be implanted everywhere on the space we find. We just need 1 square meter. The idea was also to reflect about the value of the space, with what make the cost of one piece of land more expensive in a certain neighborhood and less expensive in another one. So we have this idea to produce, looking also about this big idea of architecture mechanic from the 30s, and where to produce architecture as a machine. We decide to design this architecture as a kind of repetitive system for individuals who can survive in the streets, home, in the corner between two buildings, in the near delivery machines, etc. The idea of the project, or the goal of the project, was not to say, once again, you should build that, but more to be a kind of advertise for how can we design for this situation, how can we take consciousness of the emergency of the housing situation. I mean, looking at our streets, our conditions, homeless people, poor people, and society becoming more and more conflict between poor and rich people. How can we, in which way can we reflect and produce new situation? In this case, a house for one individual will be a nightmare, let's say, the thing, because you cannot receive people, you cannot invite people to your place. But at the same time, because you cannot receive people in your place, where is the place to survive, you will invest the public space, and the public space will be again the space of meeting, of sharing. So it was this idea in a point also, public space is less and less public. It's more and more control. It's more and more normatized and controlled by the power. So what the situation, we can invert this thing. Actually, we built a prototype of this house in Paris. Was not fully completed because it's always the question of norms, because the security, etc. This system was considered by the authorities too complicated to have people living inside. So we don't have the permit to open it as a house. So it's like an empty architecture, a kind of dead architecture, a dead architecture before the birth. Question of birth, question of body, question of environment, social, political, brings also us to climate situation and our responsibility to look about tomorrow and our today act, or maybe our past act. And sometimes we design projects for clients more as question than as answers. In this case was a very short study we did for an hotel, a luxury hotel in Amazonia forest. And we designed this hotel as a possibility of failure hotel or failure architecture, a building who can, in a point, be destroyed after it's built. So I will not explain it as fully, but more about this notion of what you see is what you get. You know, this market idea where you take it because you see it. So the consequences are here. This is a pen, you pay for a pen, you have a pen, a pencil. I think we are now living in a world where what you see is not what you get. And we need to explore what is behind. And sometimes our responsibility is to say no if we don't see the interest or the value of what is asking to us. In this project, to accept to design an hotel in Amazonia, for me, for us, was an impossible situation. So more than say, no, I don't want to design it, we said to the client, we will design something we will more a question about what you are doing. And the question is it the right place to build an hotel for luxury people coming to have holidays in the jungle in this situation? And the answer is no, this is not the place. This is not the moment to do this kind of project. So we take most of the time this freedom, which is not an easy freedom, but we take this freedom sometimes to say no to clients, to say, no, this is not something I want to touch. Or if I touch it, I cannot answer in the way the client or society expect it. There is for us many ways to look. Here the drawing shows this thing about perception, sky, earth, you know, this the hopscotch game. What we try to have on our project and our research is to have the both ways to see the world, to see the situation, to see the infinite possibilities. And sometimes we participate to competition, architectural project, but also exhibition in museums. And we try always to ask a question. Here the question was, the meaning of time, the meaning of where we go, where we come from. So this hopscotch is a non-stop hopscotch. There is no entrance, there is no end, no beginning. And it was made on the ground of the museum, and days after the use by the kids of the hopscotch, it started to disappear because it was made in very fragile material. I consider myself as a citizen of the world. I'm born in France, I'm a Portuguese. My family grows in Portugal, come in France as not refugees, but workers in the 70s. So, and before the same, my grandfather lived in Argentina. I'm not considering myself as national, French national or Portuguese national. I'm a citizen of this world. My identity is not the one we are supposed to put on a passport. My identity is more complex, is more troubled. And a lot of our productions are linked about this notion of identity and this notion of border, where why so much borders? What mean a border? What mean a wall? What mean this fear or these systems to control us? And here it's a project in New York for the storefront for architecture and art. And then this project goes to LA. It was 10 years ago now. It was Ghost in the Shell. And as you see the title, if you put the G and the S of this title film, Ghost in the Shell, with this cartoon, you probably know, it became Host in the Hell. So Host in the Hell for me is our conditions. The picture you see, it's myself face, it's a self-portrait where I take bubble gum and I change my identity, face identity, becoming a monster. And at the storefront, if you know the space, it was designed by Vito Acconci and the artist and the architect, now I forget his name, but you will find, was a kind of interesting gallery in New York, end of 90s, mid 90s, where the artist and the architect reflect on the space who will be an exhibition space who blur this situation from private to public. So the walls, this gallery doesn't have storefront for architecture and art and architecture, is a gallery who doesn't have doors, but the walls open in the street. And the curator, Joseph Grima, asked me to do the last show before renovation. So it was really the possibility to do something before the space will be closed and renovate. So the storefront became an institution, a kind of New York institution, very famous. And it was the moment we were looking about after the war in Afghanistan by the US after the 9/11, and this big chaos in the world, a new paradigm of the situation, Americans bringing the Guantanamo situation and taking people arbitrary. We don't know exactly who was the laws who are adopted. So one country became the master of law and put the people in jail. So it was this Bush period. I mean, and I was really looking about the control and how borderlines and systems are moments about domination of the situation. So here you see the storefront was this wall, curved wall, with these doors who can be open. And our proposal was to encapsulate these walls to generate a space in between, not a space who is a private, space or public space outside, but to focus in the situation of transit in between public and private and privacy. And we generate this entrance or this system where we were connecting all these walls open to the outside, and to create a kind of exhibition was more than the exhibition himself. To see the installation was the experience to get in, who became the project. It was not the end or the beginning, was the system of transit who was the proposal. And what is the transit, what it's mean, this revelation, this space between, who became a space without law, without control, with a space of pure alienation. And at the end, it was a video of my performance where I changed my face to a monster. At the same sequence, the year after, we did exactly the same exhibition. So it was in Los Angeles at the LaxArt. And I want to use the same material, who was this material with the chain link, with the material also to create the most basic, the fence with to create the most basic limit of property, and the border to generate the difference, what I own, where you cannot go in. And using this material again, but in a kind of moment, a bit of, to be honest, I was in a bit of euphoria. I was really attracted by this period because George Bush was replaced by Obama as president of the US, and it was this moment of hope. So I did this border in the gallery to express this hope about no more walls, no more walls. Let's open the borders. And we designed this kind of fence wall, who is super dangerous, of course, but at one moment who became not anymore a border, but became a transit, a kind of meeting point between two spaces. At the same time, we were producing a kind of micro architecture as a weapon, where riots, we were interested on these moments of population, of groups, where at one point the individuals became a kind of meta-individual and protest and claim things. And I was interested in producing a kind of micro architecture with more this moment of exchange when the words and the discussion can be taking place. I think public space is less and less the space for expression, for protest, more and more difficult to have this freedom of explanation about inter-exchange. So we designed this silencer for microphones to generate a kind of absurd situation where one protests to the other one, but in a kind of intimate situation. Talking about fence and protest and etc., there is one common object everywhere in the world, who is in France called la barrière Vauban, also called Vauban fence, who was this, Vauban was the French minister during Louis XIV. He didn't invent this fence, but you know, this fence is how police and the public space can control and create a kind of system of limitation. So it's a kind of movable borders. And we changed the design of this fence to generate a kind of new situation, a kind of new possibilities. It became a kind of object for public space who will be for new possibilities, a kind of jardin or French garden of possibilities. It's an absurd project. It's, let's say, more an interrogative design. And we did a series of performances in different exhibitions with this, let's say, usual design becoming, let's say, ordinary design becoming an extraordinary design for new situations. That was the place for the design for a kind of our power, let's say, control the public. But at the same time, I was a bit disappointed for that. And I take the opportunity for the Chicago Biennale 5 years ago, I think 2005, something, to 15, to design a kind of contrary point, a kind of fence who can be used by protesters to protect themselves. The barriers I showed you before are not to protect the people, it's to control the public, the people. And my idea was like, how can we design a different proposal, not for the ones who let's say, who have the power, who control, but for the ones who protest. And we start with this very simple object here, with a very simple element we can build by anyone. It's just to bend some tubes and to stick it. We became a kind of, I will not say a weapon, but a kind of defensive object who can be joined together with another one to create, let's say, protective clusters where the people can go inside and be protected from aggression, from violent acts. So that's another example of project. That was it's not to build fence, it's to build like islands of resistance, of protection for the public. So that was the show in Chicago, the Biennale, Chicago Biennale of Architecture. It's a quote of a very important writer, but I don't remember his name, sorry. It's too early in the morning for me to make my brain work, but it's a beautiful quote saying, constructions of islands are the inversion of habitat. It's not anymore time to put a building in an environment, but the time now to put an environment inside the buildings. We try to do it, to apply these ideas. One of these was to build a kind of very fragile environment for, actually was a place in Paris, from the French, the Paris Museum for Contemporary Art, Modern Art, where they ask us to design a scenography and a space for lectures inside of this classical monastery, who was the place historically where the French Revolution started in Paris with École de Médecine and Couvent des Cordeliers in Paris, where the revolutionaries in the 18th, 17th century start to discuss, and it was every day a meeting there, and the revolutionary and thinkers of this period come there and discuss about freedom, about power. And this idea brings us the fact to use a material for this show, the most ambiguous material, because let's say we were interested on this ambiguity of history, where different options always on the table, and we don't know any moment we live at present times, and we don't know what will be the future, and our decisions can change the future, but we don't know exactly. So everything is a kind of big illusion, not illusion, but question mark. What will be tomorrow? Are our acts today inform tomorrow or change tomorrow? In this case, we were interested on this material with the Captain material was invented as a pure technological element to protect from the sun the temperature of elements. It's a Dupont-Nemours, this company, chemical company, but this material is main quality is to reflect thermically. It's super thin, and because it's hyper reflective, you can protect the temperature of the body inside or the materials and etc. So now we use this military research for technologicals. Now it's known as the common use of that is the survival blankets. You all know about that. And this hyper high-tech research and in technology, we use this material a lot, like in satellites to protect the mechanics and to reflect the sun and to stabilize the temperature, is also at the same time paradoxically used in the sports and all the things, but it's also the most simple material for surviving. I mean, homeless use it, all the emergency situation use it. So these two ambiguous or like totally detached use were for me very interesting, using it as material, also because the extreme fragility of this material is the protection of another extreme fragility. And we use the material just to generate this kind of double flux to protect a place for lectures, for philosophers come and discuss about the world surrounding. Giorgio Agamben come, a lot of very famous philosophers, scientists come on this place. And the fragility of the material and this kind of super fragile system where the most moment where somebody was moving all the structure was just like shaking, but super slow, generate a kind of attention about what is the emergency of the world today. About emergency, I really like this quote also. I am in my body, I am in my body. The most people drive, so I am in my body as a foreigner. And the body is the place of protection, is the most fragile thing we have at the same time. So why architecture cannot in the same way go slowly and closer to the body, and how can we organize systems who can protect the body without changing the environment around us? And we make this project who is called Home Suit Home, with an architecture made with carpet, elements we use everywhere, to generate a kind of micro architecture as a clothes. The clothes is the architecture is the clothes. At the same time, we explore elements about our culture. In this case was the Opus Incertum, with a project who is talking about steel fragility and how can we, in a way, experience the fragility in a safe, our fragility in the safe conditions. Here was the Leap on the Void by Yves Klein, and for the Biennale of Architecture in 2000, maybe 6, something. We designed this very safe element of a piece of architecture where the public can experience the leap in the void, the jump, and the fragility of this moment, or the uncertainty of this experience. Other projects who are dealing between this notion or ways about fragility, but at the same time about individual to collective, a double swing for the Shenzhen Biennale, where we make this billboard where there is nothing to see, nothing to advise, but more a moment of experimentation of our condition, about the world surrounding. On the right of the picture, you see the stock market building under construction by Ram Koolhaas, about this overspeed world where we have no time to reflect. So it was this thing where more than an advice or more than exemplary object, we just make this empty billboard where the people can stay and just look about the surrounding world. I really like this quote also by Hervé Guibert, so luckily I remember it, but it's also the most important for me, who says at the end, the vice should be a public service, a free public service. Governments should organize competition who will give prize to people who is able to produce vicious architecture. I don't know if we produce vicious architecture, but we produce moments of question marks in the city. Example, this project who is called Stairway to Heaven, who was a competition, a project to design a public space, was around 1,000 square meters. And our proposal was not to design this or all 1,000 square meters of garden, of public space, but to design just an experience to question our condition, who was an ambiguous space, who is the most ambiguous space we can have in social housing, in collective housing. The staircase is the most ambiguous. It's not private, it's not public, it's a space of negotiation. So what I proposed to this competition with my team was to build a copy of the buildings, staircase, collective buildings, and to put it in this 1,000 space, and to do nothing around, but just this staircase to question this negotiation space. So we put this staircase, on the top of it we make a big cage where you can play basketball solo, a collective sport who can be played lonely. Is my internet okay?
Yes, it's been perfect.
Okay.
It's all fine. Thank
Okay.
you.
Okay, because I got a message. So here, this project was, we actually win the project. It's a prize for contemporary art in Portugal. We win in 2001. We built it with migrants, illegal migrants in Portugal, who were migrants coming from East countries, but North, I mean, Russians and others. Place who doesn't are really builders, but it was interesting for us to have these workers working on this art piece. And the building was built in 2002, and the the launch of the building was more than 10 years after, because the city after that changed politically and don't want to have this building. So it stayed 10 years inaccessible space. I will jump a bit more in architecture and to show you a project who was a project for a kind of star, a very public person who was very known. And this person asked us to design a house who will be the most intimate house. So from, oops, I make a mistake. Sorry. Just 1 second. What's happened? Oh. Okay. It's Keynote who collapse. It's not me. So this house for this very known person was supposed to be his most intimate and private house. Let me check if it's come. Okay. Here we are. Sorry. So we work on this notion of most private and arguing what will be your most important private conditions. Strangely, the answer was a very communal.
Didier, sorry, are you sharing your keynote?
Yes.
We don't work. See. I think you should press that green button of the share screen and then reshare your window.
Okay. Is it working now? Okay. So let's say the client answer to all our questions with a very obvious answers. I want to have 5 bedrooms. I want to have a piano room. I want to have a dining room. But the thing was, actually, we tried to design it, and it was impossible because it became a kind of misunderstood about what is privacy. He was not talking about what he wants and what he was desiring, but more about what people expect about the house of somebody, not his house, not his home. He was talking about conventions. So we make this drawing and telling, so we think the house you want is like that. And he was very upset, like saying, like, but I'm not looking to asking to you this kind of house. If I come to you is to have an exception house, a crazy house, the house of a talented architect. I don't want to live in this house. And I tell him, actually, what you describe about your dreams of house is a house like that. It's a very normative house. So you need to tell me more about yourself, and we need to go beyond what you want to show to the world or to about your intimacy. It's convention, it's not the reality. And we start the discussion, and the drawing of the house start to be more and more complex. And at the end, as a program, there is a house with 5 bedrooms, a piano, kitchen, bathroom, but everything is mixed. Everything is a territory of this intimacy, and the intimacy wants to share with his friends and guests. We bring back this picture with, for me, the complexity of what you see is what you get, or what you see is not what you get, or not what you want to see. And going beyond, from this drawing, we start to work on the project. And we start to condense and to organize this idea of intimacy on his house, and to generate the final project was an organization of intimate, or let's say, day cycles of life, and how intimacy is perceived inside of this organization and how it's structured. So here is the project. At the end was a house as a kind of city or a kind of landscape, a house where you structure the systems to live and where you can grow surrounding totally freely. So there is a landscape, the no man's land, with the transitory space, and the city. And let's say the body is seen a bit like in the quote I showed you before by Laurie Anderson. I feel in my body as most of the people drive their car. On this quote, what we see is maybe the body is a machine. We can take care of the body, but at the same time, you need to produce a space who is also about the mind. And we produce this space as a kind of dichotomy. In one area, we care about the body, and the other area, we don't have any function, real function, and we care about the mind. And because this person was also a public person, and the land for the project was a very big land, we share between inside and outside. This house doesn't have windows, but the walls can be open, a bit like taking the idea of Vito Acconci about this blurring space between private and public, inside and outside. That became the operative about the landscape inside of the house, who became not a private space cut by his environment, but an extension from the public to the private, from the private to the, and the two spaces are linked. Here is the body care, the mind care space, and here is the house with enclosed. If I come back to this notion of public and private, and where the body is find its place, I would say this project is not a public space, or is a public space for individual use. And this project, this house, is a private space for public use. So it's an inversion of that. And what we start to look on this project is this blurring moment where boundaries disappeared. They're still there, they disappeared. And just to finish about this topic, we're interested between common and private. Just very quick, now I will go through the project very quickly. I don't know how many times I can speak, but was a project here for an island in Japan with Ishigaki near, it's really south, deep south of Japan, near Taiwan. And the clients, it was a project for 4 houses in a slot of land. And we designed the house as a kind of extension of common and private, and it's just this house, these 4 houses are a common, share a common wall. And as you see here, there is degrees of privacy and degrees of adaptation from public to private. Who is the private, who is the bedroom, where you see the bedroom is really, really at the end of the system. You have the bathroom also, but all the structure is about a kind of filtering system where you go from the most, let's say, shareable space to the most private space, intimate space, I would prefer the term. With the swimming pool is the most collective one. And then from the swimming pool, you get into the house. You have the collective space with the kitchen, and the kitchen surrounded by the, comment on dit, not restaurant, but salon, anyway. And then from there, you see the hygiene space with the bathroom. And then on the back, you have the kitchen, the bedroom. Sorry, I'm losing my English. Another house who is on the same topic of same system with a house with an extended house who can be, the client asks us a project where he can grow the project if the family grows. So we design 4 walls, or exactly 4 starting walls on the thing, and the house have the possibility to grow. So it's just you continue the walls on the land and the house can grow. Very simple project. Another house about this notion of fragility, a house for desire. I will not explain the full story of the house, but it's a house to make love. It's for 2 lovers. It was a theoretical project. It was not to be built. So it's called the porcelain bunker, a house who can be broken, where there is no rooms, only a space to sleep, to make love, to live our animality. A very fragile house. And another project we did in China was, in a way, this picture is not appropriate as what it talks about opium, things and drugs. But what I like on these pictures is the fact the land, or let's say the space, is a very, very narrow space, who is a kind of poly-active space. You can eat, you can do, okay, smoke the opium, you can do many things on this very restrictive space. And the client in Beijing asked us to design the most luxury apartment we can do. And for me, the question was, what is luxury? Luxury, it's time. It's the time you have to do what you want. It's not about the materials. It's not about the abundance. It's more about this thing about spending time. It's the maximum of the thing. So to design a space to show luxury, or to talk about luxury, you should design a space where this space is able to generate loss of time. So we designed this kind of, instead of having an apartment with an entrance who will be the most small space with the transit area space, we inflate the entrance of the apartment becoming the most big space in the apartment. So it was in 140 square meters apartment, and we used the half of the apartment to make the entrance of the apartment. And then we generate all the functions to minimize them surrounding it. So like that, all social representation about what you should have in your dining room, what you should have in your bedroom was erased, just to live the experience of spending your time doing nothing. And well, so the box with the entrance of the apartment, and surrounding the dining room, the salon, the kitchen, everything is in the periphery of the apartment with the most cheap furnitures. Everything is super, super minimized in terms of cost. No representation, no social representation, the minimum hygiene, everything is treated, the bedrooms, everything is treated exactly as the same with no hierarchy. It became the function, sleeping, eating, discussing, looking, propaganda, movies on TV, blah, 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 etc. And the entrance of the apartment became the space to invent new situation, to become an animal, to become wild, to become free of conventions, to do whatever you want. We spent a lot of money to make the pillows in real silk, and the broderie was gold. And we put this kind of I don't know, to do very, very different things on the space. Through that, we designed some furnitures for apartments, a double bed, not to make love, but to be independent. I don't know if I'm too long, maybe, but I think I make a small lecture for 2 or 3 hours. So I will go on the project and super shortly about the way we produce things. A project for cultural institution in Mexico was built on the idea of percolation, not to try to change the group ideas, but to change individuals who visit the institution, the museum. It's a project for a museum, library, a cultural entity. And we start as the choral, something who can filter the public in the museum on the library, who is like individuals became the generative of the space. I'll go fast on that. There is the building. Actually, it's a building you cross. It's a building without a real entrance. You can come from both sides of the building and just cross it and find different situations. Another project was furnitures project, who is this kind of sprouting the same entity to repeat it and generate new situation. It's a furniture, it's a chair. We question also the gender issues of design. So is there the norms of design? Who are the norms of design? So it's the minimize of sitting. So basically it's 8.5 centimeters repeated, and the kind of idea of ergonomy is a social construction, and we don't interrogate exactly what we are supposed to interrogate with our own ergonomy, body ergonomy, because everything is standardized. And basically the base is we learn to use a chair, but we don't learn to occupy a territory to transform it as in a chair for us. So some views, some installations, light installations, some projects for actions. It's a small theater in André Bloch house near Paris, with more an empty stage for performing. Objects to question living, question society. Here's is a project from Mexico who was called Portátil Democracy, who means portable or nomadic democracy, with an agora super safe, where the people in the village can go and discuss freely without in situation of wars or cartel or dangerous situations, where the people can be protected and discuss their life and other things. Here is a scenography we did for a spectacle in Sweden. It was, yeah, something about dynamics, no explanation, because I want to show you a project to complete. It's a bit loud. And then I will jump. I will show you two more projects. One, but this one in, let me, sorry. I need to leave the, no. Well, I don't know how to do that. Okay, this is Zoom. Let me check partage d'écran. Do you still see me?
Yes, I do see you and I see your screen.
Okay, so I'm lost because I'm trying to leave it. Arrêter de partager. Okay. Okay, now I have it. Just trying to show you the project to finish. Alors. I still have time?
Mm-hmm.
And the last one, if he wants to come to me. So I'm not sharing yet. Okay, so I need to, okay. Now it's sharing?
Not yet.
Okay.
I think it's coming. I think it's.
I'm sorry.
Fine, take your time.
Plein écran. So this bar, a space we designed in Belgium, was last year, with a kind of focus on different situations. I explained to show you. It's the XYZ bar in Belgium, and the client asked us to redesign fully the bar and lecture hall and different exhibition space. So it's like a proposal, but we focus on some very specific rooms. And actually, it's the first time I show it as a lecture, so I don't know how exactly to explain it. So that's why I bring this video. It's more easy to see something in movement. Voila, and I will explain it now. Doesn't work. I will try again. No. Okay.
You have a very funny file names. And it looks like you're doing a project on COVID as well. Yeah?
Not really. It's a joke.
Okay.
Alors, if I do that, no, because I know what I'm doing wrong. It's I need to stop to okay, so now I can do that. Keynote. I'm sorry. Doesn't want. Something is wrong with Keynote. So. Okay, so I don't know what's going on, but something wrong with my Keynote system and the last pictures for you. So maybe at the end of the workshop, I will show these 5 or 6 pictures more, because I think it's impossible to open it from here.
Okay, that's fine.
It's something wrong. So voila, so my conclusion, okay, without these pictures were like the last project we produced was basically we, as a unit of research of company architecture, I don't know how to describe our, let's say, office, but the common point here on all this project is this kind of constant search about systems were not the most obvious, and how in a way we can find alternatives situations. And the key point for us is like, with very ambitious probably, but it's how can we subvert existing systems to highlight the hidden situations. In the case of this bar, I will explain, probably make a small explanation at maybe at the end of the workshop, if Marie-Helene agree, and if you agreed, like just a complimentary lecture on 3 projects. The common point of these 3 projects is we work more on the hidden part of the program than on the official part of the program. In the question of the bar, our proposal was really focused on one very simple idea, who is the gender type we can apply to a space of social interaction. And this bar, because this bar, all the surrounding of the bar is, I will not say social, but yeah, social housing for university students. And so surrounding it and the previous design of the bar and things were really this male representation of masculinity in a way. What is a bar with the tables, the pub, this thing of, and we were like very in comfort with that, because in a way, why it should be the usual way of producing a space, this common, in French we said, idée commune of what is the bar. And we start to look about, and so, and I cannot explain you on the things, but a lot of the way we design a bar are built on some behavior we have in the space we learn about with the tables, and the bar is the end. And we try to observe the things and to generate a bar with a kind of extension of the interaction. And we how do you call it in English? The balcony. I don't know if it's the right name, where you have the waiter and the people with the machine and things, and one side to the other side, establish a kind of hierarchy. And we create a kind of extended balcony. We became a space of interaction between the people. And I will explain it next presentation more precisely. But my conclusion is like, try not stop on what you see and what you expect. Try to be clever to see what is behind the questions, and be brave. Be brave to produce the unexpected. Thank you.
Perfect. That was a really great finishing words. Absolutely. Wonderful. Thank you very much. I will really look forward to see the rest of the projects that you have missed. Thank you.
So now, Marie-Helene, please come.
Yeah.
See you at the...
See ya.
So hello again. Yes, so the workshop title, as you have seen, is Auto Fiction Focus in one word, I mean. And so it's a game of words, mixing autofiction and autofocus, because the idea of this workshop is to make the students work on a narrative they have to invent, to create, I mean, and visual materials that, how can I say, visual material that supports or yeah, that supports the narrative. So I try to be more clear. And all this in connection with social media, because at the moment, I mean, all of us and all of the students, I guess, are connected somehow in social media. Might it be Instagram, TikTok, or Snapchat, or other social medias. And in all these, at least visual social medias, I guess young people are less on Twitter than the older ones. So on visual social medias like Instagram and TikTok, for example, but I'm thinking, I'm more focusing on Instagram, people show images of their supposed lives, but these images, even though they are taken lively, they are not always, and most of the times, they are not really their true life. If you look at an Instagram account of an influencer, for example, or anybody, you only see nice things like good food, good setting, happy faces, parties, and everything. And you never see sadness. You never see sad things and difficult times and people struggling and people eating junk food and living in poor places. And so everything is always glamorous, always good looking, makes people want to dream, and it's a way to communicate certain things. And in a way, even if these pictures are true, are lively taken, they're fictional because they only show one part of the real life. They only show what you want to show to people and what you want to show about your life and your friends and the place you live and the food you eat, etc., and the clothes you wear, etc. I think it's, and that's why I think it's interesting to work these days on this notion of fiction and reality. And in literature, there's a movement called autofiction. Many authors, they write novels that are based on autobiographic elements, but they don't really write their stories. They write some fictional story, but it's very mingled with their real life story. And that's what it is called autofiction. And also on social media, you focus on your life, you focus on your interest. And so you do a kind of autofocus, like with a camera, when you zoom on a specific spot. And so that's why I propose you to work on this fusion between autofiction and autofocus. And in the same way that these two words referencing more the written discipline and the image discipline, that's why I ask you to work on a narrative, written narrative, and to work on the narrative through images. So this is the general framing. If I get more specific, and I will send you a list of references also that will help students see better maybe what I'm talking about. So as an assignment, what I propose is that either students individually or as a team, because you're most welcome to work as a team, team of 2 or 3 people, you decide to write a story. So I'm giving you 3 choices. You could decide to write something very free, and I don't give any guidelines, or you write something that is like an article on an architectural space, or you write something that is a city guide, like a city guide, a presentation of a city. And so on one hand, you have this written narrative that I ask you to work on, to write. And on the other hand, I would like that you work on the visual materials that accompany this written narrative. And this has to trigger the notions of fiction and reality. So I want you to use images that exist, not to invent images with Photoshop or whatever. And if possible, to use images that you find on social media, and particularly Instagram. If everybody has access to Instagram, I think it would be the best way, because then everybody has the same source. But otherwise, you can use other social media. And I ask you to take these images, the images you use, only on social media and not in the general internet. So for example, among the references I will give you, there's this movie, well-known movie, I guess, for all of us, by Bong Joon-ho, Parasite. In this movie, the house of the rich family is a very important element. And this house is not an existing house, it's not a real house. It was designed explicitly on the purpose of the script, because, and I will send you references of a couple of articles with interviews of the set designer and the filmmaker, Bong Joon-ho, that explains this very well. Bong Joon-ho, when he writes movies and scripts, he is very precise in every movement of the camera, every movement of the actors. And he knows exactly, when he writes the scripts, how his movie will look like. And for example, he's explaining that he wanted, he designed a floor plan of the house, because he wanted that from the kitchen, you could not see people in the staircase going upward. And he wanted people to be able to hide in some other places. So he had in mind special relationships between different spaces. And so the house, the sets for the house were designed to fit perfectly what the filmmaker had in mind in terms of movements of the character, movements of the camera as well. So this house exists, but at the same time, it's a fiction, because it was built only to serve the purpose of the narrative. And so for the people, for the students who want to choose the narrative as an article, architectural article, that's what I would like you to do, to work on an imaginative architectural space, like a house, an apartment, and to build it from existing images, and to write the article that describes this space, this apartment, or this house. So that's one direction I suggest. But it's only a direction, because of course, if you have this in mind, this movie Parasite, maybe you will stuck too much on this kind of thing. So I want you to be very free and open-minded, and you can go a little bit sideways, of course. But this is one direction. And the other direction I propose, would be to write a text that is an introduction, a description of a city, like a city guide. And but at the same time, of not necessarily a real city, but a city as you would imagine. For example, if you look at people making selfies in front of the Eiffel Tower, the Washington Capitol, and the Gyeongbok Palace in Seoul, and other places around the world, it's only symbols of cities, and it's not cities with live people living there and working there and taking the public transportation, whatever. So people, these people who make selfies like that, in making selfies like that, we all do, you give a certain view of a city. And so you could decide to talk about a city who is, I'm making simplistic assertion like here, very messy or very beautiful, a green city, or mysterious city or playful city. So you have to decide what kind of city you want to talk about, which kind of city you want to talk about, to choose images, and you write your text and you build up the images that illustrate, not only illustrates, but you know, it's a real dialogue between the written material and the visual material. So, and maybe in the way you work, you will find it easier to first work on the visual materials, and then from that to start working on the written materials. So it depends. Some people will start by writing, some people will start by finding visual materials, some people will try to do both at the same time. So it's really up to you. And that's why the visual material is not an illustration of the written material. It's a real dialogue, and they're really complementary. And so this allows you, like you find in movies again. Sometimes you watch a movie that takes place in a neighborhood you know, in a city you know, and suddenly the scenes go one after another, but you know that this street is not just before the other street, the street in the scene afterwards. And so there's a construction of a city through existing elements. For example, the last Mission Impossible, there's a part of the movie taking place in Paris. And when we were watching it in Paris, everybody was laughing, because no, it's impossible to be in this street and then to be in the opposite place in the city. But it doesn't matter. It makes the movie, and it makes the city necessary to the movie. And so that's what I'm thinking about when I ask you to write a city guide of an imaginary city based on existing places. And you're free to mix up with places from different parts of the world, because maybe you fantasize a city where you that would gather all the very iconic monuments, for example, and you know, you have this 7 wonders. So maybe you want to have a city with that gathers the 7 wonders of the world, and maybe you want to fantasize a city where you have all the nicest skyscrapers of the world, or the nicest buildings that you personally like. So it's really very free and very up to you. But then in any cases, the discourse and the visual elements you built up have to be coherent, and really to make one project. So you have to work on one project with 2 elements, a written narrative and a visual narrative. So, and the third direction is very free. If you have some other idea, you're most welcome as well, because I think it's good to give directions, but I don't want to impose these two directions. If you have some other great ideas, it's really most welcome. What could I say more? Maybe tomorrow, because we have another working session tomorrow. Maybe tomorrow
I think Herta has a question. Herta, do you have a question? Oh, no. Oh, I can't hear you, Herta.
Sorry, I just wanted to say I have to go. I see you.
Okay.
Sorry.
All right,
okay.
yeah.
Yeah.
So Marie-Helene, it was very interesting. So do you expect some kind of an extensive story by tomorrow?
No,
Not just a simple story, but sort of a story that has like a beginning and the end, or this sort of fiction, right? Okay.
Yes.
And do you envisage the result to be some sort of like a scenography or like a script of a movie, you know, that comes together with writing and the image?
Mm-hmm. Well,
it doesn't necessarily have to be a movie, does it?
No, not at all.
Okay.
So it could be, you know, sometimes you see in magazines a double page talking about a city.
Mm-hmm.
So it could be a setting like that, like an article on a city with images and a description of the city.
Mm-hmm.
It could be like an article on an architectural blog about a house or an apartment. It could be like maybe if people want a storyboard with a synopsis, and so it's very free. And then, well, I'll see during the workshop, but maybe we can also decide to that one form of the project is one image that after we put on Instagram.
Mm-hmm. Okay, and so I create the image while making the fiction. Okay, or you find the images already in the Instagram. Yeah. Okay. Cool.
And if the students are dealing with a social media and have an Instagram account, they can post things of their process if they want. And then, if so, I ask everybody to use this hashtag, autofiction focus.
Okay.
Okay. It's a hashtag that doesn't exist yet on the Instagram, so
brilliant.
Hashtag, our workshop.
Cool. Brilliant. It was very interesting. I mean, during the Didier's lecture, I really hardly do this, but I wrote it down literally what he said, I think, in like 6 pages, front and back. It was very interesting and very inspiring. And also this task using, I mean, the concept of autofiction and autofocus is very interesting. It's really nice. So we have 3 choices. One could be writing free story, whatever. And number 2 could be an article, quite architectural, as an example of the parasite. And number 3 could be a city guide. Yeah.
Yes, exactly.
Cool. Fabulous. Fantastic.
And, if the students have time and if they don't know this movie, I suggest for tomorrow that they watch this movie. I think it's on free streaming on Amazon Prime. Usual Suspects by Brian Singer.
Okay.
So
it's an old one, right?
Yeah, 1995. So the young generation, maybe they don't know this movie.
Okay. Okay, but, so that's another reference.
Yeah, And so if you have the chance, try to watch this movie either for tomorrow or during the workshop, because there's a twist in this movie, and it's really also about fiction and what you're building as a reality, but in fact that is fiction.
Amazing. Is the usual suspect is that one for reference for the #2 article in Architectural Story, or is it for City Guide?
It's an overall reference.
Okay, wonderful.
The notion of fiction and reality, and what you see is not necessarily what you get.
Wonderful. Sounds really interesting. Okay. So what I'm going to do is actually summarize whatever we said today, whatever you said today, the whole thing, and then share it over the email in both English and Korean, so they can, get the sense of it in the maximum way. Brilliant. So from tomorrow, we'll have like students quite like brief presentation of what they sort of brought in as the works to the table, and that will be with you here at 4 o'clock in Korean times, and it will be like sharing their own screen to share their stories, right? Okay. Perfect.
And maybe tomorrow, just to start, I will show some images as reference, and
sounds very good.
Yeah.
Okay. We don't have to bring, I mean, do we have to bring one image only, or do you mind people taking 2 or more? Okay, cool. There's no limit.
No limit.
Fabulous. Sounds wonderful. Thank you very much, Marie-Helene.
Thank you.
We'll see you tomorrow.
Yeah. Bye-bye.
Bye. 학생 여러분들, 제가 이메일로 오늘 있었던 이야기들 조금 요약해서 혹시 영어이기 때문에 이해하지 못했던 부분들이 있을 수 있으니까 제가 이메일로 요약해서 전달할 수 있는 한 다 전달하도록 할게요. 여기에 혹시 이메일 남기지 않은 학생 있으면 지금 채팅창에 올려주세요. If there's anybody who hasn't gave me their email, please put it on the chatting room right now. Type your email so that I can give you notices of what we have taught by Didier and Marie-Helene today. I'm going to summarize of the lecture today and also share the lecture recordings with you and share what you have to do tomorrow, the task for tomorrow. 질문 있으신 분? 제가 이거를 요약하고 보내드리는데 시간이 걸릴 테니 그 사이에 질문 빨리 해서 알고 싶은 게 있으면 지금 손 들고 얘기해 주세요. If you have any questions, you can give it to us now, because it'll take a couple of hours for me to write all the summary and send it to you over the email for the works tomorrow. 다 이해하셨어요? Yeah?
So tomorrow we will have a presentation, and can we presentation as a group, or?
Yes, you can. You can do it by yourself, or you can make a group of 2 or 3 people.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, you can make a team. And also, yeah, any other question?
Okay, thank you.
No more question? Okay, I got email. 여승소 and 호정. I don't have actually email of 오태민, 이경미, 권민영, 이유, 김재흠, 곽불가, 강소동, 등기에. So if you don't give me your email, I won't send you the summary. I won't send you the recording of the lecture. So it would be difficult. It might be difficult for you to catch it up tomorrow. 지금 저한테 이메일 안 주신 분들은 okay, yeah, 유풍일, I got one. Yeah, I got you, 유풍일. 지금 제가 이름 부른 사람들은 이메일 아직 못 받았어요. 강소동, 곽불가, 김재흠, 이유, 엄감명, you're fine. 권민영, 총린린, 이경미, 오태민, 등기에. 이분들은 제가 이메일 따로 보내지 않겠어요. 그리고 참여 안 하는 걸로 이해할 수도 있겠습니다. 간략하게 오태민 오케이. 간략하게 이메일이란다. 내일 할 일들을 설명드리자면 인스타그램에서 이제 이미지를 얻고 또 이야기를 쓰고 해서 지금 어떻게 보면은 픽션 뭐라고 그러죠? 실화가 아닌 이야기를 픽션이라고 하죠. 그러니까 소설 같은 내용, 어떤 만들어진 이야기, 영화나 소설에서 보는 것처럼 드라마나 그런 만들어진 이야기를 이제 만드는 거예요. 각자 혹은 팀 작업으로. 만들어진 이야기가 그냥 이야기로만 끝나는 게 아니라 어떤 이 이야기를 보충하고 보조할 수 있는 이미지를 인스타그램에서 찾아오는 거예요. 그래서 자기가 하고 싶은 이야기 아무거나 해도 돼요. 아까 옵션을 3가지 줬는데 하고 싶은 이야기 아무거나 아니면 어떤 되게 건축적인 뭐 기사가 될 수도 있고 건축적인 이야기가 될 수도 있고 건축적인 뭐 영화가 될 수도 있고요. 아까 예시로 얘기해 주신 게 봉준호 감독의 기생충 영화 있었죠. 그 봉준호 감독의 기생충 영화에서 보는 그 세트장은 거기에 나온 모든 공간들이 하나하나 다 의미를 가지고 있고 의도를 가지고 있었어요. 그런 것들을 이제 내포했던 것처럼 자기도 이제 어떤 건축적인 아니면 공간적인 이야기들을 풀어내고 싶을 때 그런 어떤 이미지를 같이 활용을 해야 되겠고요. 하나 아니어도 돼요. 여러 개여도 돼요. 그런 이미지들을 같이 포함시킨 어떤 자기의 이야기들. 꼭 나의 이야기가 돼야 되는 건 아니에요. 우리 아까 얘기했던 것처럼 픽션이니까. 그런 이야기들을 만들어내는 어떤 실화 같지만 실화가 아닌 그런 이야기들을 만들어내는 작업을 하는 거고요. 3번째 옵션은 그거였어요. 마치 내가 도시 여행 책자에 나오는 어떤 도시의 소개를 하는 것처럼 자기가 상상하는 도시여도 되고 아니면 실제로 존재하는 도시여도 되고 하지만 어떤 픽션의 성격이 띠는 이야기들 그리고 그거를 보조하는 인스타그램의 이미지들을 같이 이렇게 붙여서 프레젠테이션 하는 거예요. 제가 아까 얘기한 그런 3가지 옵션들 중에 하나를 골라서 하면 되겠고 쉽게 어렵다고 생각할 수도 있겠지만 쉽게 생각하면 아까 제일 처음에 얘기했던 것처럼 인스타그램에 누가 사진을 올린다는 그 행위 자체가 내 일상에 아주 투명하게 보여주는 건 아니잖아요. 어떻게 보면 되게 좋은 것만 보여주고 재밌는 것만 보여주고 공감할 수 있는 것들을 위주로 보여주기 때문에 이것도 픽션이다라고 이제 이해하는 걸 전제로 지금 이야기하는 거예요. 자기 이야기 아니면 자기의 주변에서 일어나는 어떤 재밌는 이야기인데 이게 이미지와 이야기 설로 풀어지는 순간 이거는 픽션이 될 수 있다라는 그런 전제를 바탕으로 이야기하고 있는 거예요. 그렇기 때문에 내가 그냥 가끔씩 아니면 혹은 매일매일 올리는 어떤 인스타의 포스팅 같은 의미에서의 어떤 이야기, 이미지 그런 것들을 가볍게만 우리가 생각했지만 인스타그램의 그 인스타가 되게 가벼운 어떤 그런 일시적인 일상의 공유라고도 할 수 있겠지만 그거를 조금 한층 더 심도 있게 생각해 보고 그 이야기를 얼마나 우리는 더 창의적으로 상상력 있게 만들고 꾸려낼 수 있는지 한번 해 보는 그런 세션일 거라고 생각해요. 저는 우선 지금 해줄 수 있는 얘기는 제가 다 했고요. 이거를 이제 정리해서 이메일로 또 보내드릴 수 있도록 하겠습니다. 질문. 질문 없으시면 내일 만나겠습니다. 빠이빠이. 내일 만나요. 내일 4시입니다. 늦지 마세요.
네, 수고하셨습니다.
네, 감사합니다.